The Way In. Episode 9. Deadly Trail. Chapter 1. Lights Out. Mara. The lights go out just as we see the cabin. One moment it's there, lit, steady, familiar against the dark line of the trees. And the next, it drops into shadow, like someone reached in and pulled the power from the world. Carver kills the headlights immediately, and the car rolls the last stretch in near silence, the tires crunching lightly over gravel that sounds louder than it should in the stillness. My chest tightens before I fully register why. It isn't just the darkness. It's the timing, the precision of it. Whoever did that knew exactly when we were close enough to see it and far enough to be exposed. "He's here," I say, already reaching for the door. Carver doesn't answer right away. He's scanning, not reacting. His eyes move through the tree line, reading the gaps between trunks, the places where something could stand without being seen. He's not looking for a person. He's looking for movement that shouldn't exist. We stop short of the cabin. I don't wait. The door opens, and the night air hits me cold and sharp, carrying that faint mountain smell of damp wood and soil. I'm moving before the car fully settles, my boots hitting gravel, then dirt, then the packed earth leading up to the porch. "Mara," Carver says behind me, low, controlled. "My dad is in there." That's all that matters. He doesn't argue. That's the part that tells me everything has already shifted. We're past caution, past planning. We're inside the moment now. "Stay behind me until we know where he is," he says. No. The word comes out without hesitation, not defiant, just certain. He looks at me for half a second, measuring whether this is something he can override. It isn't. "Do exactly what I say then," he replies. That's as close as we get to agreement. I hear him pop the snap on his shoulder harness. We move together, fast but controlled, keeping low, keeping tight to the cabin as we approach. The woods feel wrong. Not just quiet, empty in a way that suggests something has already moved through them and taken whatever noise should be there with it. The front door is unlocked, so I push it open. "Dad?" I whisper. My voice carries farther than I expect, stretching into the dark interior like it's searching for something to hold on to. For a second, there's nothing. Then, I'm in the kitchen. Relief hits hard enough to make my vision blur. We move toward the voice. The beam of a flashlight cuts across the room, catching dust in the air, turning it into something visible, something alive in the space between us. He's standing there, alive, alert, confused. "What the hell is going on?" he asks. I open my mouth to answer, and the first shot cracks through the trees. The sound is sharp and deliberate, not the wild crack of someone firing blindly into the dark. It's controlled, measured, and well-placed. The kind of shot meant to move people, not hit them. Carver reacts instantly, stepping in front of the line of the windows, pulling me down slightly with him as another shot follows. Closer this time, angled differently. "Stay low," he says. My father doesn't freeze. He moves. That part doesn't surprise me. He's always been the kind of man who responds to pressure by narrowing his focus instead of losing it. He steps away from the window, opens the cabinet beside the counter, and pulls out a rifle with the same kind of familiarity that suggests this is not the first time he's had to be ready for something. "Who's shooting?" he asks, not panicked, just direct. "No time," Carver replies. "Do you have more than one?" "Yes." "Good." My father hands me the second rifle without question. The weight of it settles into my hands in a way that feels both foreign and immediately necessary. Another shot rings out, this one further to the side, forcing us to shift position again. "He's moving," I say. Carver nods. "Yeah, he's not holding position. He's walking the perimeter." "Why?" my father asks. Carver answers without hesitation. "Because we got here too fast." Nathaniel expected to have more time. Time to observe, time to set something in motion. Time to prepare my father for whatever role he intended him to play. We took that from him, which means whatever he's doing now isn't the original plan. "He's adjusting," I say. Carver glances at me. "Exactly." Another shot cracks through the trees, then silence. Not fading, not trailing off. Just gone. And somehow, that silence is worse. Chapter 2. The Long Night. We don't move for several minutes after the shooting stops. Not because we feel safe, but because we don't trust the quiet. Carver stays positioned near the window, angled just enough to watch the outside without exposing himself. My father stands a few feet back, rifle lowered slightly but still ready, his eyes moving between us like he's trying to assemble something from pieces he doesn't fully understand yet. "He's not leaving," I say. Carver nods once. "No, that wasn't an exit. That was repositioning." My father exhales slowly. "All right. That's enough. You need to tell me what's happening." This time, we don't avoid it. We sit at the table, the flashlight placed between us, casting just enough light to see faces without lighting up the windows. I start at the beginning, choosing what to say and what to leave out, trying to give him something he can understand without pushing him into disbelief. I tell him about the first blackout, the second time it happened, when I didn't fight it. What it felt like to be inside someone else, to see through them without being able to stop it. I tell him about Daniel, about what he said. There are others. My father listens without interrupting. That's what surprises me most. When I finish, he leans back slightly, his expression tighter now, more focused. "And you're telling me the man out there can get into someone's head?" he asks in disbelief. "Yes." "And he was going to try that with me?" "Yes." He nods once. "Then he picked the wrong person." Carver shifts slightly. Respectfully, he doesn't pick wrong. My father looks at him. "And who are you in all this?" "His old partner," Carver answers. That word changes something in the room. My father studies him more closely now. "What happened?" Carver doesn't answer immediately. Then, "I trusted him longer than I should have." That's all he says. But it's enough.
Chapter 3. The Watcher, Nathaniel. The mountain settles differently at night. Sound travels farther, but meaning travels faster. Movement carries intent, and stillness carries decision. From where I sit along the ridge, the cabin is partially obscured by trees, but not enough to lose it completely. I don't need to see them clearly. I only need to know they stayed. Of course they did. Carver wouldn't risk movement in the dark without control. Mara wouldn't leave the father. That gives me time. Not much, but enough. I sling the rifle across my back and let the next move take shape without forcing it. The original plan depended on patience, on creating the right conditions over time. That variable no longer exists. They removed it the moment they arrived early. So I removed the need for it. The father is still viable. Not as a long-term solution. not as a stable entry point, but as a moment, a disruption, a way to alter their movement just long enough to create an opening. I close my eyes and begin to reach, not with urgency, but with precision, moving toward the edge of his awareness rather than forcing entry outright. And then, the voice. "You're accelerating." It isn't mine. It never has been. I don't respond immediately. "You're forcing movement," it continues. "That introduces error." "I've accounted for it," I say. A pause follows, longer than usual. "You're closer to exposure," he says. "No, I'm not." "Closer than before," he says, forcibly this time. "True, but irrelevant." "I'll adjust," I reply. "You must, and you will," I hear him say in my head. "There's something else beneath that now, not doubt or concern, something more observational." "Be careful what you reveal," the voice says. "I'm not the only one watching this anymore." This gives me pause. "What does that mean?" I snap back. Silence, then, "You'll understand soon enough." And as abruptly as he was there, he is once again gone. I open my eyes, and for the first time, the scale feels larger than I anticipated.
Chapter 4. Undetected Movement. Mara. Dawn comes slowly in the mountains, more of a suggestion than light at first. The darkness doesn't retreat so much as thin out, turning black into charcoal and charcoal into shape. By the time the tree line begins to separate itself from the sky, none of us have slept. We've done what people call resting, when what they really mean is taking turns being exhausted while still armed. Carver is already awake when the first real light touches the windows. Maybe he never slept at all. He stands near the front of the cabin, looking out through a gap in the curtains, his body arranged in that rigid stillness that people mistake for calm. It isn't calm, it's containment. Men like Carver don't relax under pressure. They compress. My father is at the counter, pouring stale coffee into 3 mugs like the act itself matters, like routine still has authority if you perform it correctly enough. He passes one to me without asking if I want it. He knows I won't drink it. That isn't the point. The point is that he's still functioning inside old rules, and maybe that's the only thing keeping this place from feeling entirely alien. Carver turns back from the window and says, "I don't think he's out there." I nod before I even realize I'm doing it. I know. That's the part none of us say out loud right away. Since the night before, since the cabin lights died and the shots came from the woods, since the long hours of explanation and silence and watching the dark through narrow gaps in fabric, something has changed in me. Not control exactly, not mastery, but the connection is no longer accidental in the way it was at the beginning. There are moments now, brief, unreliable, dangerous moments, when I feel the absence of him the way other people feel, a decrease in pressure when a storm moves off. Carver hears the answer in my voice and accepts it without challenge. That, more than anything, tells me how far we've come in a very short amount of time. My father sets the last mug down and says, "Then we go to him." There's no drama in that statement, no performative bravado, just directness. The simple, familiar cadence of a man who spent most of his adult life believing that if danger had a location, then it had a path, and if it had a path, it could be met on that route by people willing to move first. Carver walks to the table and clears space with one arm, sliding the empty mugs aside without looking at them. "Before we do anything," he says, "we define the move." My father nods and comes over. If he's as smart as you say he is, he would have holed up at the ranger station overnight, he says. He uses the edge of his index finger to trace the trail again in the wood grain, as if the map already lives beneath the surface, and all he has to do is uncover it. A main path that leads east. 2 curves, a split at the ridge and a right fork that climbs. The left fork skirts low. The ranger station sits above both if you know where to look for it. Carver translates memory into tactics in real time. We take the right fork. Stay off the skyline. Use the trees to break line of sight. No bunching up if the path opens. No straight approaches if we have a choice. And if he's waiting for us up there? My father asks. He is, Carver says. The certainty in that answer doesn't feel arrogant. It feels earned. Then what? My father asks. That's where the conversation finally becomes what it should have been the night before, once adrenaline settled enough for thought to come back into the room. Carver looks at me. If force is necessary, we use force. My father's eyes shift to me next. And if it isn't? He asks. That's the question I've been avoiding since the moment this started, because it asks more of me than anything else has. If the connection holds, I say, choosing each word carefully, I might be able to reach him before he reaches for someone else. Might. The most dangerous word in the room. My father doesn't flinch at it. How? He asks. I don't know yet, I admit. I've only crossed into him when the opening was already there. I've never tried to do anything once I was inside except survive it. Carver leans one hand on the table. Then we assume 2 plans. One physical, one psychological. The phrase sounds strange in the cabin, under that roof, in front of my father with 2 rifles leaning by the wall and day finally entering the room in gray strips. But it's right. Carver is right. We need both paths. One in case the other fails. One in case Nathaniel forces the wrong kind of contact before I'm ready for it. My father folds his arms and studies me the way he used to when I was younger and wanted to be taken seriously before he believed the world had made me strong enough to deserve it. Can you stop him? He asks. There's no point lying to him. I don't know. He nods slowly. Can you slow him down? That answer comes easier. Yes. Then that's what you do. There's something stabilizing in that. Not confidence, not comfort. Just a father taking something impossible and reducing it to a task because tasks are easier to survive than mysteries. Carver moves to the drawer and pulls out 2 handheld radios. He checks both with the kind of casual efficiency that tells me he's done this often enough not to think about the motion itself. Channel 3, he says. Keep traffic minimal. No long calls. Position, sighting, status. Nothing else if we can avoid it. My father reaches for one of the rifles, then another, checking the bolts, the magazines, the sling points. He isn't performing competence. He's inhabiting it. That should make me feel better. Instead, it sharpens the edge of my fear. Nathaniel knows all of that too. He's counting on exactly this kind of man behaving exactly this way. We split at the start, Carver says finally. He looks at my father. You head down to town and make a call to this number. He hands him a card with a number on it. My father's expression changes. Small, but I catch it. I'm not sitting this out. You're not being asked to, Carver says. You're being used differently. And then, we can't risk you being used against us. That line softens his expression a bit. Then my father says, "I'll check the truck." It should be a normal sentence. It isn't. Something inside me goes still. I can't name it yet. But by now I trust the sensation more than I trust logic arriving on time. He takes the flashlight and heads toward the door. I watch him go. And the wrongness follows him out.
Chapter 5. Desperate Times, Desperate Measures, Nathaniel. The station is useful in ways the cabin is not. Cabins are personal spaces. They are filled with assumptions, sentimental objects, habits grown over years. That makes them distracting if you need clarity. Personal spaces complicate observation because people do unpredictable things inside places they love. They tend to revert and linger. They circle memories instead of exits. The ranger station has none of that. It is an abandoned shell with good elevation and limited approach angles. It was built for observation. That makes it honest. I've moved through it 3 times already, changing small details each pass. A broken chair shifted near the back wall to create an obstacle where the eye won't expect one. Dust disturbed near the entry, but not enough to signal occupancy unless someone already knows how to read it. The rifle placed, then repositioned, not for immediate use but for access if negotiation collapses into necessity. Most confrontations are lost before either side understands they've entered one. Environment decides more than courage ever will. The father was meant to be breached gradually. That remains the only obstacle. Had Mara and Carver arrived an hour later, less than that perhaps, the process could have unfolded cleanly. Observation would have become pressure, pressure would have become disorientation, and disorientation would have become a threshold I could use. Instead, I was forced to compress time, to move before pattern fully settled. Compression always introduces uncertainty. Still, uncertainty is not the same thing as failure. I feel the father at the edges first. His awareness sits differently than Mara's, less disciplined internally, more procedural, built on old reflexes that still believe they are sufficient for this kind of terrain. Former law enforcement makes useful subjects when age has not yet softened their confidence but has already simplified their routines. They still trust instinct, which means they trust the story their body tells before they question where it came from. I don't need full control. Not yet. I need drift. He will check the truck. He will find what I left for him there, the tire cut cleanly. He will evaluate, reassess, and return. And when he returns, I will already be waiting just behind his decisions. The teacher's voice rises again, not from nowhere, but from that old interior place where instruction used to feel like revelation. You're narrowing your options. I don't look up. There's nothing to look up at. They narrowed first, I say, then widen the board. The advice sounds simple enough to be obvious, which means it's probably important. They're moving together now, I say, Carver and the girl. Mara? He almost never says names. The teacher continues as though the correction itself means nothing. You're treating proximity as the problem. It isn't. Their alignment is. That is more useful. I step to the window and study the tree line below the station where the trail disappears through cover before reappearing farther down slope. If Mara and Carver approach together, their strength isn't just numbers or training, it's reinforcement. She interprets, she feels the pattern, he operationalizes it. Separate, each is manageable. Together they close gaps too quickly. The father can break that, not by killing them, not yet, by bending the root, by creating just enough confusion, just enough misplaced trust that they move where I need them instead of where they intend to go. You're thinking too locally, the teacher says. I ignore the implications and focus on the useful part. The Father will lead them. He'll lead them somewhere, the teacher corrects. Whether that serves you depends on what you do next. There it is again, that sense of scale widening beyond the immediate terrain. I look toward the woods and imagine the lines extending outward from this mountain. Mara, Carver, the Father, the old cases. The board is larger than the cabin and the station and the trail between them, but this mountain is where one configuration of it will change. You said I'm not the only one being watched, I say. By whom? A pause, then silence. No elaboration. I stand there with the answer-not answer settling into me and understand something I don't like. Whatever comes next in the world beyond this mountain is already in motion, whether I have named it or not. Good. Let it move. For now, the immediate problem remains pleasingly simple. The Father will return. The girl will know something is wrong. Carver will hesitate before he acts. That triangle is enough. I reach again, not forcefully, just enough to lay a hand against the edge of the Father's decision-making and tilt it by degrees. Not command, suggestion, a subtle rearrangement of emphasis. The truck is unusable. The call can wait. They need help on the trail. You know these woods better than they do. Go back. There is resistance, but only in fragments. Training does not vanish, it drags. But under stress, men fall back on whatever story gives them the strongest feeling of usefulness. He turns. Good. Now all I need is for Mara to see the wrong thing 1 second too late.
Chapter 6. False Trail, Mara. We're 10 minutes up the trail when I hear him behind us. Not loud, not dramatic. Just the sound of someone moving fast enough through the undergrowth that he no longer cares whether the leaves underfoot keep his secret. Carver stops immediately and raises one hand. We both turn. My father steps out from the trees carrying the rifle over his shoulder like it belongs there. Truck's done, he says. Tires blown. No spare. He's breathing harder than he should be for the distance between the cabin and the drive, but not enough to make me think he ran all the way after us. His expression is right, too. Annoyed, irritated, practical. All the surface pieces line up. Carver studies him for 2 beats instead of 1. You check the road? Yeah, my father says. Nothing coming through. It'll be hours before anybody gets up here. He steps closer. I'm not sitting this out. There. Again. That internal shift. Wrong. I still don't know exactly what I'm seeing yet, but I know enough now to trust the sensation before I trust comfort. My father has always been direct under pressure, but this is something slightly different. Too smooth. Too eager to insert himself back into the route after Carver gave him a different role. It could be pride. It could be fear. It could be exactly what it looks like. Carver says, "Fine. Stay behind me." My father nods. Then he shifts the rifle. He moves it from one shoulder to the other, adjusting grip, settling into travel position. To the right hand, everything inside me goes cold. He's left-handed. That sounds small when stripped of context. Petty. The kind of detail only a daughter would notice because only a daughter has spent enough years watching the same man open jars, sign cards, carve turkey, throw a line into the lake, lift a rifle to his shoulder from habit. But those are the details that save you in situations like this. Nathaniel knows enough about him to walk the body. He doesn't know enough yet to wear the life cleanly. I do not look at Carver. I keep my face neutral, my pace steady. and tap my thumb twice against the side of my rifle where he can hear the light contact if he's listening. He's listening. I can tell by the way his shoulders tighten almost imperceptibly, not with alarm, with readiness. Good. We let my father take the lead when the trail narrows. Not because I trust the path, because I know Nathaniel is trying to shape it. The woods close around us as we climb. The trail becomes less trail and more scar through roots and rock. Branches crowd in. The ground slopes down hard to the left and rises sharply to the right. It's a bad place to commit your whole body to forward momentum. A perfect place to force 3 people into each other's way. I can feel the intention of it now. Not through mind reading, not through the connection, through design. He is moving us somewhere. Carver stays half a step behind my father, close enough to close distance fast, far enough not to telegraph that he's ready to. I follow behind both of them, every muscle in my body waiting for the wrong movement. There. A bend where the trail pinches between a boulder outcrop and a deadfall trunk. If someone were going to turn and fire, or drop, or pin us into one line of approach, this is where they'd do it. We take one more step. Then Carver explodes and drives into my father from behind with the kind of speed that looks almost unfair until you understand it was prepared 3 seconds ago and merely waiting for the right point to become action. The rifle comes up, but not in time. I move at the same moment, grabbing my father's arm and wrenching it outward as Carver takes his legs. We all hit the ground hard. My father fights. That's the first thing that tells me Nathaniel is still in him. The violence of the response isn't emotional. It's mechanical. Too immediate. Too committed. Carver tries to pin one arm while I pry fingers off the rifle stock. My father jerks, snarls, not words, just sound. And for a second, the sheer force of him shocks me because age is supposed to change the body more than that. Then it stops. Not gradually. All at once. The strength leaves like a cord cut. He blinks hard, breath coming ragged now, and looks between us in raw confusion. What the hell? I let go first. Carver doesn't. Not until he's sure. My father's eyes track like a man waking too fast from anesthesia. What happened? He asks. I step back, chest rising and falling too hard, and understand the answer before I say it. He let go. Carver takes the rifle fully away and rises, still watching him. Nathaniel didn't lose my father. He released him. Which means this was never about keeping control. It was about getting us here. That thought comes half a second before the radio at my belt crackles once with dead static, and the connection flickers behind my eyes. Faint, but enough. He's close, closer than he should be, and he's still waiting.
Chapter 7. Best Laid Plans. Nathaniel. They corrected faster than I wanted. Mara saw the detail. Carver trusted the signal. The father was always the weak link in the current phase, but I had hoped for a little more distance before the illusion collapsed. No matter. The choke point served its purpose anyway. It tightened them. It sped them up. It confirmed who among them is watching details and who among them is reacting to trust. That information has value even when the maneuver fails. I shift deeper into the station and change positions again. Never hold the same window too long. Never let the shape of occupancy become readable from the trail. The station gives me angles, but angles only matter if the person using them refuses to become part of the surroundings too early. The shoulder stock fits cleanly against me. Breath in, breath out. light through the east window changing by degrees now that morning has advanced past gray and into something harder. They are still coming. Of course they are. The father failed because he was a temporary instrument, not because the overall pattern broke. If anything, failure accelerates competent people. They stop pretending caution will save them once they've seen the mechanism for themselves. Carver will tighten. Mara will move too early. The father, once released, will become both witness and burden, useful in his own way. His confusion will slow them by seconds. His existence will keep their emotional bandwidth divided. I hear movement below before I see it. One set of footsteps lighter and faster than the other. The girl first. Interesting. She's split from Carver. That was always the more likely outcome under sufficient pressure. She still believes speed can cancel strategy if the target is personal enough. I move into the shadow beside the interior wall rather than the window. Let her enter an empty room first. Let the station teach her the wrong lesson. Emptiness is one of the most effective lies in close terrain because people mistake the absence of immediate threat for the absence of design. The teacher's voice does not return. Good. I don't need him for this part. The next move is simple. Use proximity. Use surprise. Hold the girl long enough to force Carver into a constrained choice. Men like Carver reveal themselves most clearly when negotiation is compressed into seconds, and the only acceptable outcome requires violence. And if violence becomes necessary, then so be it. But there is one more variable I need to respect. Mara. The back pressure from the connection has strengthened. Not enough to destabilize me. Enough to matter if I pretend otherwise. She has crossed into my awareness now more than once. Whether she understands what she is doing is irrelevant. Repetition itself changes the route, which means the confrontation at the station cannot be prolonged. Hold, assess, force response, exit. Simple. I hear her reach the porch. The board under her weight gives one short complaint, then another. The front threshold. Now.
Chapter 8. End of line. Mara. I don't wait for Carver. That's the first mistake. I know it even while I'm making it. Somewhere behind me, down the trail, my father is trying to stand, without understanding why his body turned against itself. Carver is checking him, listening to the radio, recalculating what Nathaniel wanted from the choke point and what it means now that the ruse is broken. But I can feel him. Not clearly. Not cleanly. Just enough to know he's ahead, that the pressure in the back of my mind sharpens instead of fades when I move uphill toward the station. It's like walking toward a signal with damaged equipment. Each step gives me a little more interference and a little more certainty at the same time. The station appears through the trees in a shape too simple to trust. Small, elevated structure, door hanging open, no visible movement through the dirty windows, no sound except the mountain itself settling under morning. Wrong. Everything about it is wrong. I slow the last few yards, rifle raised, trying to quiet my breathing enough to hear inside. Nothing. No boards, no scrape of boot, no movement in the dry grass behind the structure. I step onto the porch. The board beneath my left foot gives a dull groan. I enter. The room is empty. A table, one broken chair. Dust, light through smeared glass. Too empty. The realization arrives just before his arm does. It locks across my throat from behind, not crushing, just absolute. The gun presses into my side beneath the ribs where pain can become compliance faster than fear can become speech. Stop, Nathaniel says quietly into my ear. His voice is exactly what I remember from inside him. Calm. Southern. Controlled in a way that makes emotion feel cheap. My rifle drops from my hand and hits the floorboards with a sound too loud for the small room. Good, he says. Then, softer, almost approving, you're learning. I don't answer. Not because I'm afraid to, because I'm trying not to waste attention. His grip, his breathing, position of the gun, direction of weight. He's keeping me angled toward the door, using my body as barrier and leverage. Not full shield, just enough that anyone entering has to consider the line before acting. Carver, I shout anyway. Nathaniel tenses fractionally at the sound of the name in my mouth. There's history in that reaction, old and sharp. Still running to him, he murmurs. Footsteps outside. Fast. Porch boards again. Nathaniel adjusts, pulling me a fraction tighter. Carver fills the doorway with his gun already up. Time compresses. Let her go, he says. Nathaniel smiles against the side of my head. Not with warmth, with memory. You're late. Carver doesn't answer. His eyes flick once across me, measuring angle, distance, wound potential, line to target. 1,000 small calculations inside half a second. Nathaniel says, "You should have retired by now, Tom." The use of the name sound like something private made public. Then, without warning, Carver fires. The shot is deafening in the station. Nathaniel jerks hard behind me. His grip breaks. The gun drops away from my ribs long enough for instinct to take over. I drive backward with all my weight and twist out of the hold as he stumbles to one knee, one hand clamping over his shoulder where blood is already seeping through the fabric. I hit the floor, roll, scramble for the wall. Nathaniel is moving before pain fully claims him. Of course he is. Carver advances, but Nathaniel doesn't stay to exchange anything. He crashes through the side of the station, shoulder first against one of the warped lower windows, glass and wood splitting outward in a rush of noise and bright air. "Stay here," Carver snaps. I don't. I radio my father down the hill to alert him of the situation, and Carver in pursuit. He's already out the door, and I'm on my feet half a second later, chest burning, radio clipping uselessly against my side as I follow. We hit the slope below the station just in time to see Nathaniel weaving through the trees, one arm pinned close from the wound, still moving far too fast for a man who should be losing more blood than that. Carver raises the gun. No shot. Too much tree cover, too much motion, too much chance of hitting nothing but bark and losing position entirely. "Nathaniel!" he shouts. Nathaniel doesn't look back. The connection slams into me then. Not like before, not accidental, not residue, not passive witness. An opening. He's hurt. Distracted. The route between us is raw enough to take. I stop running. Carver is still moving ahead before he realizes I'm no longer behind him. "Mara!" I hear him yell for me. I close my eyes. And push. The mountain drops away. There is no motel, no borrowed room, no observed body this time. I am in motion inside him, against him, not behind his eyes, but inside the control itself. His thoughts are not words. They are vectors, escape routes, pain management, immediate objectives, distance from Carver, keep blood loss secondary, get below the ridge, regain line of sight, live now, solve later. And there, threaded through all of it, the mark. It is the only word I have for it, because there are no words to describe what I'm seeing. It is not a symbol exactly, nor a wound, nor a voice. though it contains elements of all three. It sits inside him, like something grafted into the deepest part of his internal machinery, something that does not belong to the rest of the mind and yet has fed on it for years until the mind built itself around the intrusion. This is where his gift lives. This is where he reaches from. He feels me now, not fully, not as identity, as resistance, a snag in the current. Panic flickers for the first time, not emotional panic, structural panic, the kind that happens when a system realizes a hidden access point has become compromised. I reach for the mark. It recoils. Not physically, conceptually, like grasping something that insists on its own necessity. It tries to fold around itself, to vanish into the rest of him. I don't let it. The struggle is not between bodies. It is between claims. Nathaniel's life has normalized this thing inside him so completely that removing it feels like violating the rules of the human mind. For 1 second, I understand why he has never questioned it in any meaningful way. It doesn't feel foreign from inside him. It feels fundamental. But I know better, because I know what foreign feels like. I pull. The resistance is immediate and overwhelming. Pain shoots through me, not in my body, not in his, but in the connection itself, like the root between us is being dragged over broken glass. I pull harder. The mark begins to separate. He stumbles in the woods. Outside this shared internal violence, his body stops moving cleanly. I hear Carver shouting his name from somewhere far away. The mark tears once, then holds. I think of my father on the trail with his rifle in the wrong hand. I think of Daniel. I think of my own body standing at my kitchen table while another man evaluated it like equipment. I think of every person on Carver's walls whose lives were bent around something they couldn't explain well enough for anyone to believe them. Then I pull again. This time, it comes free, not cleanly, violently. Nathaniel's body drops to both knees in the leaves below the station. The connection ruptures at the same instant, and I slam back into myself hard enough to stagger where I stand. For half a second, I can't tell if I'm upright. Then I am. Carver has his gun trained on Nathaniel already. The man in front of him looks smaller. That's the only word that fits. Not physically reduced, stripped. The cold precision in his face is gone, replaced by shock so naked it looks almost childlike. He blinks once, twice, like the world has become too loud without warning. Carver reaches him in 3 strides and drives him face first into the ground. Cuffs click around his wrists with a sound that feels absurdly ordinary for what has just happened. Nathaniel doesn't fight. That may be the most terrifying part. He turns his head once just enough to look up at me from where Carver has pinned him. There is confusion there now, and emptiness. No certainty, no hidden distance, no second layer watching from behind the eyes. Just a man bleeding into the leaves and not understanding what's missing. Carver looks at me over him, his own face pale with effort and disbelief. "What did you do?" he asks, but I am breathing too hard to answer properly. "I took it," I say. He stares. Then, because there is no time to process the impossible, while still standing on a mountain with 1 injured prisoner and 2 miles of descent ahead, he hauls Nathaniel to his feet. We walk him down without speaking much. Carver in front, gun ready. Nathaniel in the middle, cuffed and unsteady from blood loss. Me behind them, rifle slung but hands still shaking in a way I know I won't be able to control, until long after this is over. The mountain sounds return slowly as we descend. Wind through trees, a distant bird, gravel under boots. The world reassembling itself now that the thing inside Nathaniel is gone. At the cabin, my father sees us emerge from the tree line and freezes on the porch. It takes him 1 second to understand who the man in cuffs must be. 2 seconds to understand that I'm still walking behind him under my own control. When we finally stop at the foot of the steps, no one says anything for a long moment. There should be triumph in it, maybe. Relief. Some clean emotional release after too much pressure. There isn't. Because even with Nathaniel bleeding and cuffed and emptied of whatever let him move through minds, I can still hear the teacher's implication from the ridge through Nathaniel's memory. I'm not the only one watching. This isn't over. There are questions that need answers, and we have the man who may just be able to give them to us. But for the first time since it began, I am in control of what happens next. And that may be enough for one day to count as victory.